Peace, Love, Liberty Radio version 4.1. Initializing upgrades. Accessing peace. Existing without violence. With the ability to calmly resolve conflict. Downloading love. An overwhelming, deep, positive affection towards others. Activating liberty. Living your life as you see fit without infringing on the lives of others.
Ashes to ashes, we're falling down. Slaves to the men that stole the crown. There's a warning sign, like a blazing sun. You don't want to see because you're having fun. Those who control all the information celebrate and lie to the people to keep them watching.
This is Peace, Love, Liberty Radio. Online at fppradio.com. I am your host, the uncut cocaine of libertarianism. I am Darryl W. Perry. Yes, you just heard some new entrance music. That's because we're at episode 350. I try to change things up every so often. Been doing slight modifications about every 50 episodes. And the only real difference, other than the new entrance themes, is slight differences to the segment lengths. Now, I do have a show clock. Now, if you're not familiar with what a show clock is, if you've never heard that term, that's a radio term that basically, that way any affiliates that are running the show, they will know when the breaks are. And even though the breaks have been consistent, there's been a slight, I'm not sure what the right word is, a slight difference in when the breaks are. So in the file that I use, and now I'm talking, technical sort of behind the scenes sort of stuff, but in the file that I use, the breaks are always in the same spot. But one thing that I did not pay attention to previously was that some of the commercial breaks were longer than others. Now, there was no more than a 3-second difference, but if somebody's trying to, cover your commercial breaks, unless they go into the file and they're like, all right, so here's how long it is, and I'm putting my break here, they wouldn't necessarily know. So now all of the commercial breaks are going to be exactly 1 minute, 5 seconds long, and then you're not going to have that difference of when a commercial break starts. So I've got everything set up to where commercial breaks will be at 8 minutes, 17 minutes, and 25 minutes. Again, all of those 1 minute, 5 seconds long. And that's really just a technical thing for any of the affiliates that are running this if they want to run their own ads during the commercial breaks. Also, want to mention that because this is episode 350, I started doing some math of when will I hit episode 400, when will I hit episode 450, and most importantly, when will I hit episode 500. I will hit episode 500 if everything continues as it currently is, of 3 episodes per week. Now, you could wind up getting more episodes than that if you join the fans program and I hit certain thresholds as far as donations. So, again, you can go there if you want more content, or if you just want commercial-free access to this content as well as the daily newscast that I do, you can go to fans.fppradio.com. So, barring any additional episodes, I will hit episode 500 in early August of next year, August 2nd to be exact. Should hit episode 450 in early April. And I will have episode 400 on December 12th, the anniversary edition of Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, December 2nd. That marks the 4th anniversary, or the 4-year anniversary, rather, of Peace, Love, Liberty Radio. The show began in December of 2012, December 2nd, to be exact. So I do really like the fact that an anniversary show will happen on the actual anniversary instead of, oh, well, it's close enough. But again, episode 350, look for more changes to come early December. Now, because today is Wednesday, That means it's the Ask Me Anything, the day I answer your questions. I only had one come in this week. Came in via Twitter, and it was the very simple question. You voting for Gary? That's it. Just, you voting for Gary? Now, I guess what they mean is, am I voting for Gary Johnson for president? Now, as you may know, if you've listened to this show previously, you know that I ran against Gary Johnson in the Libertarian Party presidential nomination. There were some primaries, but again, that's not necessarily how the Libertarian Party chooses its nominee. So yes, there were a few primaries, but those primaries, much like straw polls that happen at various conferences and conventions, they were completely meaningless as far as determining the nominee. The way the Libertarian Party chooses its nominee is in convention. Everyone that attends as a delegate is essentially a superdelegate, meaning that they are free to cast a ballot as they see fit. They can vote for, if their state had a primary, they can vote for whoever won. They can vote for whoever came in 12th, whatever. They're free to cast a ballot how they see fit. They don't even have to cast a ballot from anyone that's been officially entered into nomination or anyone that even said they were interested in the nomination. That's how the process works. So what happened, there were, a bunch of debates at various state conventions. I've debated Gary numerous times, and I did not, on either the first or the second ballot, vote for Gary Johnson, nor did I in the vice presidential nominating election there at the convention cast either one of my two ballots for William Weld, who wound up getting the nomination. Now, one thing that I said after not getting the presidential nomination was, if the Libertarian Party decides to nominate two former Republican governors and compromise everything they believe in to get 5% in the presidential race, and they then accept a federal welfare check in 2020, the party will wind up dying. I still believe that, and I will fight against accepting a federal welfare check in 2020 until I'm either successful in getting a bylaw passed that prevents it, or the party decides that they actually do want to sell out everything they believe in. I'll finish answering the question here in just a moment.
Hey, this is Michael Dean from the Freedom Fiends radio show. I've been working with computer programmer Derek Slopey to create Fiend Phone. I'm using Fiend Phone right now to talk with and record one of my co-hosts in real time. Take it, Davi.
Hey, this is Davi Barker, and I'm 1,000 miles away from Michael, but we sound like we're in the same room.
We sure do, Davi. So, Davi, please tell the nice people more about Fiend Phone.
Fiend Phone is free, open-source software that opens up a global world of possibilities for collaborative, high-quality remote voice media production, and I'm digging it.
People can try the Windows beta version of Fiend Phone right now at fiendphone.com. But we're also raising money to vastly improve Fiend Phone and vastly improve independent talk media worldwide.
So go to fiendphone.com to help out. Who will build the audio roads? We will, with your help.
That's fiendphone.com. FEENPHONE.com. Foxtrot, Echo, November, phone.com.
Fiend Phone. I never knew remote audio could be this good.
This is Paige Peterson from Made Safe, and you're listening to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio with Darryl W. Perry.
Before I get back to answering the question about you voting for Gary, I'll tell you somebody that I know who definitely is not voting for Gary, and that would be my friend Roger Paxton, who is the producer of and the host of the Lava Flow podcast and the Lava Spurt. Now, he's been very critical of Gary Johnson, and, well, if you're fed up with the government running every aspect of your life, you need to listen to the Lava Flow podcast. Go right now to thelavaflow.com/listen. The Lava Flow podcast and the Lava Spurt, channeling the flow of information to the libertarian, anarcho-capitalist, voluntarist, and agorist community. Subscribe using any podcatcher right now at thelavaflow.com/listen. or just go back to sucking up to the government. The Lava Flow podcast, striking the root every episode. So, the very simple question, and I am not going to give a very simple answer because that's not the kind of person that I am. The very simple question, you voting for Gary, was the only question I got for today's Ask Me Anything. So, I was giving this full disclosure. I sought the Libertarian Party presidential nomination against Gary Johnson. And I said that the Libertarian Party needs to have at least one philosophical libertarian on the presidential ticket. The delegates, by a slim majority, rejected my advice and decided it would be a good idea to have two people that are former Republican governors that do not fully understand what libertarian actually means to represent the Libertarian Party. Now, for that reason, I cannot wind up voting for Gary Johnson. Had the delegates chosen either Will Coley or Larry Sharpe to be the vice presidential nominee, then I could have supported the ticket because of Will or Larry. But barring there actually being a philosophical libertarian on the Libertarian Party's presidential ticket, I cannot vote for Gary Johnson to be the presidential candidate, or to be the president of the United States. Now, we're sitting almost 3 months out from the general election, and I still don't know exactly what I'm going to wind up writing on my ballot. I'm either going to write the letters NOTA for none of the above, or I'm going to write Darryl W. Perry. I've still not decided, and I probably will not officially decide until the day of the election. I probably will still, as I'm walking into the booth, be thinking, which of these two things am I going to wind up writing? Now, I know there's some people that are saying, Darryl, by you not voting for Gary, you're voting against ballot access. To that, I say BS. Because, yes, I know in some states ballot access is tied to the presidential vote total, or the percentage of the vote nationally that the presidential candidate gets. But in New Hampshire, where I live, Gary Johnson could win New Hampshire by 100% of the vote. Everybody in New Hampshire could theoretically vote for Gary Johnson for president, and it would not do anything for ballot access in New Hampshire. So your statement that me voting for either myself or none of the above is a vote against ballot access for the Libertarian Party is one of the most blatantly ignorant things that I've ever heard. And that's because in New Hampshire, ballot access is tied to the gubernatorial vote percentage or the vote percentage of the U.S. Senate candidate. Now, the Libertarian Party does have nominees for both of those offices. I will, even though I don't think either one of the two people running for that office are good libertarians, I will begrudgingly vote for the Libertarian nominee in both of those races because I want to see the Libertarian Party have ballot access in New Hampshire in 2 years. So, the whole claim of I'm voting against ballot access is completely ignorant and absurd and not based in reality at all. Now, I'm not going to, and I don't plan on officially endorsing anyone in New Hampshire for any office at all. I have issued a few endorsements elsewhere. I endorsed Paul Stanton for U.S. Senate down in Florida. That is of interest because in Florida there's a U.S. Senate primary for the Libertarians in about 2 weeks, where Paul Stanton will be running against a man who calls himself Augustus Sol Invictus. I don't know if he's actually changed his name to that. I've heard he has. I've heard he hasn't. It doesn't really matter. But this guy, definitely not at all a libertarian. And if he were the Libertarian nominee in New Hampshire, I absolutely could not vote for him, even though it would be a vote for ballot access. Because this guy understands libertarianism even less than Gary Johnson does. Now, you might be asking yourself, well, Darryl, why do you say Gary doesn't understand libertarianism? Well, the first and foremost, Gary oversimplifies. When asked to define libertarian, he cannot actually define it without using the term conservative or liberal. And he further cannot, define what he believes in without referring to Republicans and Democrats. So he'll say, Republicans want to control your bedroom and Democrats want to control your pocketbook or your bank account. And I don't want to do either. Well, okay, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're a libertarian. And sometimes he'll answer, a libertarian is a fiscal conservative and a social liberal. And certainly, someone who is a philosophical libertarian will be more fiscally conservative and socially liberal than someone who is not, but that doesn't, the one does not make the other. Correlation is not causation. Just because you're fiscally conservative and socially liberal does not mean you're a libertarian. But if you are a libertarian, you will be fiscally conservative and socially liberal. But what is a libertarian, you might be asking yourself if you've never listened to this show before. Well, a libertarian is somebody that believes that everything should be legal as long as you are not initiating force or fraud against another person or causing unjust harm. Now, what do I mean by that? So if somebody breaks into my house, I can certainly defend myself against that person to repel their initiation of force or fraud. I'm not initiating force. I'm not initiating aggression. I'm using defensive force. I'm using, violence defensively, and that's certainly allowed within libertarianism. Now, there is sort of the discussion about proportionality, and that's definitely not something that I'm getting into here on this podcast. But I'll explain a little bit more why I think that Gary and Bill are not actual libertarians here in just a moment on Peace, Love, Liberty Radio.
You can support FPP Radio by joining the Fans program. Fans are friends, allies, and Numery supporters. Fans help FPP afford to produce more original content. You can join the Fans program for as little as $3 per month through Patreon and get perks like ad-free versions of FPP Radio News and Peace, Love, Liberty Radio. To learn more or to join the Fans program, visit fans.fppradio.com. That's fans.fppradio.com. In 2115 New England, there are no borders, no states, and no regulations, yet never has a more peaceful and prosperous place existed. But Mr. Drake's security company has seen better days. Faced with the prospect of waning power, Mr. Drake intends to replace the anarchy of New England with a government. But at what cost? Will anybody care? And can anyone stop him? Anarchy in New England by Joe Jarvis is available from Amazon.com and all major bookstores.
You're listening to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, online at fppradio.com.
Hey, welcome back to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, online at fppradio.com. Now, you want to know who is a libertarian? Well, that would be Tim Fry, the man that runs Roberts & Roberts Brokerage. He's been running the business for over a decade. Roberts & Roberts has been in business for nearly 40 years. And what do they do there at Roberts & Roberts Brokerage? Well, they are a trusted source for buying and selling precious metals like gold and silver. They now take Bitcoin for precious metal purchases and have permanently removed the minimum purchase amount for all orders paid in the digital currency. Call Roberts & Roberts today for knowledgeable advice on buying and selling precious metals and a forward-thinking approach to new technologies. 800-874-9760. That's 800-874-9760. Or visit them online at rrbi.co. That's rrbi.co. Talking about the Johnson Weld campaign, and whenever, I just have to say, whenever I hear it pronounced, Johnson Weld, it reminds me of Goldmember from the Austin Powers movie. It was a horrible smelting accident. It sounds like a horrible smelting accident, especially with some of the images and graphics that have come out. I don't know if any of these have been officially by the campaign, but the ones of the revolution whipped out its Johnson, or there's a picture of Hillary and a picture of Donald, and it says, here's the left nut, here's the right nut, why don't you have the whole Johnson? And it just seems very childish to me, the way some of the stuff is going on. But again, that has nothing to do with whether or not Johnson or Weld, either one, are actual libertarians. Now, what does have something to do with whether they're actual libertarians is the fact that neither one of the men can actually articulate what it means to be a libertarian without saying, we're not Republicans, we're not Democrats. And if you actually believe in the philosophy of liberty, you should be able to explain it without mentioning what you're not. You should be able to explain what you support and what you stand for without saying what you don't support, if that makes any sense. Now, I know some people will say, but Darryl, you call yourself anti-war, so how do you say you're anti-war without saying you're against war? Well, you could also say you're pro-peace. You are in support of people being able to live their lives how they see fit, as long as they are not aggressing against someone else or initiating force or fraud. But I repeat myself. But then you've got a presidential candidate who repeatedly, on the one hand, he will say something that he advocates, so he wants to tax and regulate cannabis. But then on other things, when he's asked a question, he says, well, the law is this, and so therefore I believe that's okay. Well, wait a second. If on one hand you're saying what you support, but on the other hand you're saying, well, this is the law and that's good enough, then why are you making these distinctions unless you're trying to pander to people? And if you're not familiar with exactly what I'm talking about, again, on cannabis, Gary will say we should tax and regulate cannabis, but don't want to think about any other substances because ooey, yuck, yuck, those things are bad. Nope, just cannabis. Cannabis is cool because that's what I use, but everything else bad, keep it illegal. But then there's questions about Gary. Should someone be forced to provide a good or service for someone else? And he'll respond with, well, the law is currently blah, 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 so therefore, force people to do stuff. Well, no, I'm not asking you what the law is. I'm asking you what you support. Well, the law says, I'm not talking about what I'm supporting. I'm talking about what the law is. Okay, then why make a difference between what you support on one thing and what you support on something else unless you're just trying to pander? And then there are other things to where, for instance, William Weld recently said something about the 5-shot rifle being the military standard, and as numerous people have pointed out, that's not been the military standard since about World War I. And then something about if you remove a pin, then it becomes an automatic weapon, and that just is not in line with reality at all. You can't just remove something to make a semi-automatic an automatic, let alone the pen. The pen is the firing thing that actually makes the bullet go pew and fly out of the gun. And now if you're talking about some sort of pen on the trigger, well, if you remove that, then the trigger falls off. So, no, you can't remove just one thing to turn a semi-automatic weapon into an automatic weapon. And then to say that automatic weapons then become weapons of mass destruction. No, that's what nuclear bombs are. That's what Predator drones are. Those are weapons of mass destruction. And that's really just sort of a term that got thrown out starting back during the Bush administration, that there's no real actual definition other than, well, something that can kill a lot of people. Well, based on that, pretty much anything could become a weapon of mass destruction depending on how you define a lot of people. Are 3 people a lot? Is it 5? Does it have to be in double digits? Does it have to be triple digits? Like, how exactly are you defining killing a lot of people? Now, I've rambled on probably enough to actually wind up giving, again, the one-word answer to the question, you voting for Gary? No. No, I'm not going to do it, but I will, again, vote for the people that actually affect ballot access here in New Hampshire. but I'm not giving endorsements. This is Peace, Love, Liberty Radio.
Why do they hate us? Is libertarianism compatible with Islam? Davi Barker answers these questions and more in Voluntary Islam and Other Essays. He advances the voluntarist cause with analysis of the confluence of values between Islam and libertarianism, as well as contemporary movements from the Tea Party to the Arab Spring. Voluntary Islam by Davi Barker is available from Amazon.com and all major bookstores. You can support FPP Radio by shopping online. Whether you're looking for precious metals, bitcoins, or books, you'll find that and more at shop.fppradio.com. Every purchase you make from one of my affiliates, like Namecheap, Spendabit, and Amazon at shop.fppradio.com helps fund FPP Radio. Or you can shop directly from FPP with Bitcoin in the Bitcoin store. That's shop.fppradio.com.
You're listening to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio with Darryl W. Perry, online at fppradio.com.
Hey, welcome back to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, online at fppradio.com. This is episode 350, and as you, again, may have noticed at the beginning of the show, to the very beginning of the show, some of the segments have slightly different links, and something that I intended to do about 50 episodes ago here in this final segment, instead of continuing whatever my thought was that I was in that third segment of the show, I want to actually wind up focusing on a service that I use, or, well, one of the affiliates that I have. And, well, today I'm going to talk about SaveWithPurse.com. You may have heard of Purse before. Maybe you haven't. I know you've heard of Bitcoin because I mentioned that as being a currency that Roberts & Roberts Brokerage accepts. But how would you like to save 5, 10, 15, 20% or more on things that you buy every day from Amazon? Well, you can do that with Bitcoin using SaveWithPurse.com. Now, I just placed an order earlier today for some supplements from Amazon. I put them in an Amazon wish list, uploaded that wish list to my Purse account at SaveWithPurse.com. I selected a 20% discount, and if nobody bites on that in about a day, I'll drop it down to 15%. If nobody bites then, I'll drop it down to 10%. I could save 5% instant, guaranteed, through SaveWithPurse.com. They also guarantee everything at or below 10% will be purchased within 24 hours. But I generally do not have a problem saving 15 to 20% on things that I'm going to buy anyway. And the difference is I get to use Bitcoin. Some people will look at it, oh, I've got to use Bitcoin. Well, no, I get to use my Bitcoin. I love using alternatives to the Federal Reserve note, and SaveWithPurse.com allows me to do that. Again, go to SaveWithPurse.com, create an account, and then when you're going to buy stuff on Amazon, you put it in a wish list, upload that wish list to your Purse account, fund the Purse account with Bitcoin, and then start saving. I've used it about 30 times and saved almost $300. And I'm not making huge purchases. I'm making, like $50, $60, $70 purchases. Just things that I was going to buy anyway. Now I'm using Bitcoin and I'm saving money. You can too. SaveWithPurse.com. Don't forget, every Wednesday I answer your questions. Send those over AMA@FPPRadio.com.
The podcasts of FPP Radio are licensed under Copy Heart We believe that copying is a form of flattery and do not abide by the copyright laws. Those laws serve to restrict the flow of ideas which no one can really own. Copying is an act of love. Love is not subject to law. If you enjoy the show, consider joining the Fans program and get perks like ad-free versions of Peace, Love, Liberty Radio and FPP Radio News, and also get a copy of the monthly newspaper FPP News. To learn more or to join the Fans program, visit fans.fppradio.com.